We all want to be successful in life, to do, as I like to say, live our dream lives. You might even be watching this show for some insights on how to do this. And if so, you're not alone. Most of us at one point in our lives find ourselves off course, whether it's from a downturn in our personal relationships or our careers. And if we don't do something about it, things can spiral totally out of control, leading to stress, anxiety, loss of self esteem, or even depression. I don't want anyone to get to that point, and I see this show as sort of a life raft for anyone looking for advice. Toward that end, we're going to be speaking with Janet Elaine Schmidt, a healer and coach who believes that success in every area of your life is real and obtainable. Janet is the creator of the Reprogram Yourself and or Business Team for Success, and she claims a 95% success rate among her clients. Well, Janet, as I said, your system is called Reprogram for Success. So
Yes.
does that mean that we're programmed to fail?
No, we're not really originally programmed to fail, but we do have some programming in us from our ancestors that are coded into us that if we just remove them or enhance them, we can reach the success that we desire in this lifetime.
So you're really saying that a lot of our behavior is really based on what happened to the people who came before us.
Pretty much. I think there's two different sciences that dictate our reality. One is quantum physics. And quantum physics says everything's energy. I mean, Einstein said everything's energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency with the reality that you wish for, and you can't help but bring it to you. That's not physics. That's physics. That's not just random. And then there's epigenetics, and epigenetics is the coding. And this is what I was talking about, the coding that's in our genes, imprinted in us from our ancestors, passed down to our parents, and our parents pass it to us from birth to about 8 years old. After that, it's our society, it's anything catastrophic that happens to us that is going to dictate your belief system, your behaviors, your thoughts, your traditions, your traits. Everything about you is programmed that way. And I can take it all the way down to the biochemical effects of your brain's functioning shows that your very thoughts affect your cells, which that brings quantum physics into it, right? Because that means that your thoughts have energy.
Oh, I know. I know. And the whole idea of quantum physics, I know it sounds like you have to have a PhD in physics in order to understand it. But you really don't. I mean, I
Mm-mm.
found out sort of accidentally when we have a video production company or post-production company, and my husband's company, we've been together, were hired to do the post-production for the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, which totally introduced me to the whole idea of, you know, quantum physics and how that
Mhm.
affects us, and totally was the beginning of the change in my life, which kind of led me to where we are right now talking together. But this seems like an awful lot to really stick on our ancestors. I mean, we talk about DNA, we sort of think of it as, okay, well, my mother had blue eyes and therefore I have blue eyes, and you really can't change that. But you say that you can change this DNA imprinting with your plan. And the way that I understand it, and you can elaborate on this, is that you actually work with 4 different parts of ourselves, and you say that all 4 of the parts need to be in alignment in order to have this kind of transformation. So talk me through this.
Okay. So I want to say one thing, and that is remember that society and anything catastrophic that happens to us also has an effect. So it's not just our ancestors, it's what we're living today. So what I would say is we have our emotional body, our physical body, our mental body, and our spiritual body. And all of these are part of who we are, and they're affected by any behavior we have. So if fear was passed down, so for me, that was a big thing. My mother feared about 99% of everything that was never going to happen. And it was passed to me. And I
Yeah, I would
realized,
think that fear is passed down by everybody.
oh, fear is a major thing, and I see it in a lot of my clients. What, no matter, I mean, if you have fear in your life about just one thing, trust me, there's fear in your life about some other things. But I noticed it one day, and I'm going to tell everybody that's the first step in changing a belief is when you notice it in yourself. And I noticed that I was actually fearful of a lot of different things that never happened. And I'm like, wow, okay, what am I going to do? So I created an imaginary bubble and I put the word fear in it and I attached it to my body. And then every time I felt fearful, I cut it away and put safety, security, and confidence in that bubble. So everything's, in my imaginary mind doing this, but I did it consistently for 1 week. And after 1 week, I was in a circumstance that for sure I would have been fearful, and I wasn't. I watched. It was like a quantum leap. I watched everything go slowly, and I like, wait, I'm going this way now, whereas I would have gone this way. And that's pretty much what happens to us when we totally change an old belief into a new self-enhancing belief. We literally can see where that change is, and we'll just go, wow, and then it's gone, it doesn't come back.
Yeah, I'm really kind of interested that you said that you were able to do this in a week because
Yes.
most people say that to change a pattern, to change a habit, takes anywhere from 3 weeks to 30 days or whatever. How did you manage to do it in 1 week?
I was consistent. I mean, I made myself hyper aware, and this was before I literally had gone into figuring out that near linguistic programming, theta healing, eye movement integration, and psych could actually, move the self-limiting belief out and put in the self-enhancing belief and really lock it in. So I started experimenting long before I came up with reprogramming. I was already reprogramming before I even knew I was reprogramming. I just knew I didn't want to have that feeling anymore. But I will say this to the audience, I had to change that on my emotional level. So think about that. I had to change it on my emotional level because fear is emotion. My physical level, well, we tense up. I mean, our bodies hold that old imprint in us, right? My spiritual body, and then my mental body had to let go of feeding the fear. So it was on all four of those levels that I actually had changed the fear. And when you can do that, you change the trajectory of your life, both personally and professionally.
That is amazing. So, how do you get all four of those in alignment? I mean, is it like the same technique to work with your emotions and your physical? How does that work?
It's being aware where out of alignment, because you could be in a line mentally or emotionally, but be out of alignment physically. You know, all of these could be out of alignment or some could be in alignment. So you have to figure out, and it takes you to be a student of your life and say which part of me. Now, for me, I knew it was across the board that I was fearful. It was across the board. But my money consciousness, which was another thing that really helped me define reprogram for success, my money consciousness was a mental thing, and it wasn't spiritual, it was mental and emotional. And that was imprinted in me from my family.
Yeah, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that because I think money issues, maybe after fear, money issues might be number
Yeah.
2. I'm not sure about that, but certainly pretty high up on concerns that really affect people's emotions and their behavior. So, uh, tell me about how you changed your money conscious.
Okay. I call it our abundance meter too. So abundance and money are the same. Um, well, I was always the kid that wanted to help the underdog in school. If somebody was being bullied, I was right there to protect them because I felt I wanted everything copacetic. I was a middle child, so I was the typical middle child. Everything has to be easy and everybody has to get along. And through time, I followed the path that everybody does. I got married. And after 20 years, I ended up divorced. I was given a large sum of money, and with that, I wanted to help the underserved. I was chairman of the board of a nonprofit that helped homeless women get a better education so that it would break the cycle with their children. So I was always doing something like that. And so before long, everybody was attached for my money because I was giving to underserved, both nonprofits and individuals alike. And I didn't know how to say no. And before long, I found myself in arbitration. My financial advisor, who was with an international, I always say this, an internationally well-known firm, had made an investment outside the scope. And I found myself in arbitration. Now, the whole time I was in arbitration, all I could think about was, I'm going to lose this money. I knew I was going to lose this money. I had read the statistics of arbitration, and that just went through my head. I never thought I wasn't going to win. That wasn't an option. I just thought, I'm going to lose this money. Well, in the end, the financial advisor, he was disbarred, his partner fined, the company was fined. And sure enough, I only got 10% of what I lost. So the question was, I was like, okay, I get this from an energy perspective, because as a kid, I was doing laying of hands on horses at 10, and I was a Reiki master. I knew what energy did, but there had to be more mentally that was going on with me, that was imprinted. So I started really being a student of my life. Like I tell everybody, I'm not giving anybody anything that I haven't gone through. And I started studying neuro-linguistic programming, theta healing, eye movement integration, and the last one was Psyche. But I started seeing how these imprints were put in me, and I discovered I came from 8 generations of ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who gave their last cents to the underserved, and who never had any money to manage. Now, I don't want to take away from their mission, because it's honorable what they did, but I didn't sign up for that in this lifetime. It wasn't something that I wanted to hang on to my abundance. I wanted to help people, but I didn't want to give all of it away. So that was programmed in me. It was programmed to not hold on to money. It was programmed to give my money away. It was programmed that it's honorable to be poor or to be economically challenged, as I say. Because my mom used to always say, if you just have enough, if you just have enough. And I used to sit there and go, but Mom, the Bible also says to much, much more is given, much, much more is expected. And I'm willing to belly up to the much, much more. I have no problem with that. And so that was the start of me really figuring out, okay, how does this left cortex and right cortex work together? How does this subconscious and conscious mind and superconscious mind work together and create and take that old money consciousness belief out and put a new abundant money consciousness in?
Hmm.
And that's how I came up with it.
I see. And was your affinity for wanting to help the underdog and those who needed help the impetus for starting your business?
Yes, because I think all of us have these imprints in us. All of us want success. And what people what everybody doesn't realize is money is divine energy that is out there. There is a unlimited amount. It is limitless. So you can decide how much you want. It's kind of like some people will say, okay, I would really love $1,000. $1,000 is what I want. But if they only have a money consciousness for $100, that's all they're going to hang on to is 100, even if they get the $1,000. And so it's increasing the level of your quality or quantity of money that you can expand to, or even abundance. I like to take it further to abundance, because prosperity comes in all different forms. I mean, nobody's going to turn down somebody if they say, hey, you want this car? Nobody's that's a form of prosperity. It's a form of money. It's just not in the form that people think of. And so I like to call it a prosperity consciousness. But it is why I went into reprogramming. I wanted to help people, but I also wanted to help businesses too, because if you look at the people that you work with, Debbie, the people that you work with, okay, they all come from different backgrounds, okay? But we all have the same goal. So you can create goals that you want your team to achieve for. And then through this process, you don't have to change all of their epigenetic background if they don't want to go through that process, but you can get everybody balanced on the goal of the company so that everyone has their energy, going that way. Their belief is there.
Well, Janet, when you're talking about your program and aligning the 4 parts of ourselves, is this what you mean by when you talk about a whole brain state?
No, when I talk about a whole brain state, it's bringing your left cortex and your right cortex into agreement. So I can give a great example of this. Eye movement integration, which could also be known as EMDR, is used for trauma and anxiety. So when we have trauma, we hold it fragmented in our brain without going into deep discussion about it, but it's held fragmented. And so what happens is your left cortex, which is your logical side, fights with your right side, which is your creative side, on how to heal the trauma. When you go through EMI, it crosses your left cortex with your right cortex by a hand movement. Believe it or not, it's some gestures like this. And that basically brings the left and right cortex into agreement. And now the healing can begin. They become in agreement. So it's called the inner healer, but now we have harmony. So you might remember the trauma, but you are desensitized from the feeling anymore. And when I use EMI, 90% of my clients feel relief in just one session. So it's very powerful.
And you only use it for trauma?
I use it for anxiety. I use it for phobias. And a lot of times I'll use it if they have like a really stressful situation. I'll use it for that too. Something that they're having a hard time getting through.
Okay. Who are the type of people who seek you out?
Oh, I have everybody, but I have a lot of entrepreneurs, believe it or not. A lot of entrepreneurs come to me. But I've had I have business teams come to me. I even have, people who just work from home, that just want to better their lives and expand. Because this is the other thing that people don't understand. When you start changing a belief of your own. So if you, Debbie, start to change some belief that you have, right? Your DNA, your hologram, your morphic field, your quantum field, other people share. Well, they can't help but be affected by this new belief. And that's what people have to understand. By you changing, you're assisting everyone around you. It's the collective. So I always say when we're going through this process, it's not just you. You are changing your life. You are designing your life, but you're also affecting all those around you. And who was it, Tao, that said the greatest gift you can give is is one's transformation? I know that's not the exact words, but that's what Tao said, was indicating. And I truly believe that, because you affect the collective.
I think that's absolutely true. But that brings me to think about this. When somebody does go and does have a transformation like that, and they change their beliefs, and if they have a relationship with somebody who might not be ready to accept that, how do they stay convinced in their desire for this transformation when they've got pressures from other outside places?
Well, that's a really good question. When I started this journey, I studied with a lot of teachers all over the world. And one was a paranormal healer, and he was amazing. And he asked me what I wish for, and I knew I never want to give away my wish. So I couldn't, I was crying because he was asking me, and I knew he knew what it was. And what it was cosmic consciousness, elevating my consciousness. Because if I had that, then, what more do you need? And he said, without me even saying what it was, he said, are you willing to leave your children behind? Now, at the time, this is many years ago, at the time, I'm like, what are you talking about? Leave my children behind? Because I'm a single parent. I'm not leaving anybody behind. And later, as I expanded and I went through this journey of reprogramming, I realized what he was talking about was, as I make the shifts that we're talking about, because they're really paradigm shifts that we're talking about. As I make those shifts, there may be some people who don't come with me. And am I going to be okay with that? Like they still will be somewhat in your world, but there may be some people who fall off. And, you know, my children, I'm lucky because my children have kind of kept with me in some level. They might be in, you know, working their way through, but they're adults now and they're all going through, but they're staying. But I have to say, my birth family did not, because they were so steeped in their belief that, and I am an extremely optimistic person all the time, and that bothered them as well. So yes, there will be some people who you'll see naturally fall away.
Mhm.
It's just part of the evolution of expanding.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of someone who's gone through your process and a little before and after?
Well, I always have one thing I do, why I can say I have a 95% success rate, is one thing I ask my clients to do is email me after about a month, or email me when they notice the change. So I actually had a podcast host who went through it and actually said, wow, after, and I think it was three weeks later. And then I had another girl who came to me for an abundance issue. And she said, I have great love, I have great friends, but there's just something that's just blocking my business. I just don't know what it is. And so sure enough, we went through just one session and I didn't hear from her for a month. And I thought, I'm going to email her and just see how she's doing. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I was so busy. All three of my businesses took off. And I'm just like, it's crazy. So everybody has these seismic shifts at some point. It can be the next day. It can be 2 weeks, but definitely before a month, everyone is feeling and noticing things are shifting where they asked for the assistance. So in the process, I will ask people, how can I assist you? And by listening to them, I pretty much pick up onto where the blockers are that at that point they wish to work on. And we start from there.
Okay. You touched earlier on you're working with businesses.
Mhm.
So when a business comes to you, what are they looking for?
Well, they're pretty much looking at, first of all, they want a cohesive team. So in order to have true success as a business, you have to have a cohesive team. So they'll put balances in place that everybody agrees on, because that's the huge thing, that it has to resonate with everyone, the balance that we put in place. But one of my first clients was a real estate group, and they came to me because they couldn't, in the market, this is a couple of years ago, in the market, they couldn't sell this one house. They called it an atrocity. They just couldn't sell this house. And then they were having issues internally. And so they came to me and we balanced, saying, this house, it is a lovely house and the people love to live in this house. And sure enough, the house sold in 3 days. We put a balance in for that. We put a balance in. We are the most cohesive working team in the company. We put that in there. So we put these positive, and the last one was they wanted to reach the top pinnacle of their success so far. And so it's getting everybody aligned. Now, for some, it may take 2 or 3 balances to get them there. For others, they might only take 1 balance to get there, or they may already be there. And there's a certain way that you can test somebody's subconscious mind to see if they believe in the new goal balance. So you just say the statement and you can see if they believe it or not.
I see that. Okay, you're trained in many different modalities. So when
Yeah.
somebody comes to you, how do you know which one to use to help them?
Oh, well, if it's a meditator, I love to use theta healing, because theta healing, both the practitioner and the client go into a light theta state. And so we're both working with energy, pulling the energy down, but I'm pushing my energy in them and working through the timeline that way. And if it's somebody that's a little more linear thinker, I will use neurolinguistic programming. And so I'm always using a couple of those. And I also use my own healing energy, but I also use, depending on who the person is, I'll use either one of those. Eye movement integration, I use when I really know that the person just can't get past that hump. And then everybody gets Psyche. Psyche is something I do at the end. It was created by Rob Williams. And matter of fact, if anybody knows Dr. Bruce Lipton, he wrote The Biology of Belief. And in the back, he attributes Psyche to the reason why he finished that book, why he has good relationships. And he goes on further to say that Psyche is the fastest, quickest way to change a self-limiting belief into a self-enhancing belief. And so I will, after I move the old belief out with theta healing or neurolinguistic programming, and even put the new belief in that way, I double lock it down with Psyche. I come behind it with Psyche.
It's all very powerful
Yeah.
things. Is there a final thought you have to leave for our audience?
I just want them to understand that if you are honest with yourself and you're a student of your life and you really look at what's blocking you, if it's something that you're repeating over and over again, or I call it looping, or you have a really strong belief, take a look at that and then dissect it, and you're on your way. That's one way you're on your way. And I'll say this, if they're listening to this, I'll give them 50% off. If they're listening to your program, I'll give them 50% off a session.
That is a very generous offer. Well, Janet, how can people find out more about you and your work?
You can go to janetelainschmidt.com. It'll have a description of almost everything that I'm certified in. I'm certified in acupressure and kinesiology for equines and canines too, but you'll see everything else that I have there, and so that you can really get a handle on what I do.
We've been speaking about success with healing facilitator and business coach Janet Elaine Schmidt. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you have, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.